The First Ghost, a novel of God's Legion, by J.T. Dowdy. Prologue. Mama Tila's was known throughout the known universes for two things: great food and lousy service upon the return of a poor tipper. Calling it a restaurant would be pushing the definition to the breaking point, as the building was more of a low-end dive bar with a grill which had not seen cleaning in maybe a millennia, because Tila thought the crunchy bits added more flavor. The building had a slight slant to one side, as if its foundation had shifted long ago, and the poorly lit street sign had been stolen as a joke and never returned. Tables and chairs had been bought on the extra cheap from all manner of sources in the known universes, because it was a game all lifelong customers played to see whose stool would be spilling them on the ground today. The floor was covered with a thick layer of sawdust, thanks to Tila's distressing habit of serving food while spitting large coal-black wads of chalk on the ground. And the outside facade was missing a few bricks, like the toothy smile of a drug addict. All in all, it was the favored hangout spot for those in the know, or the quick pit stop for those who have never been to the Legion's capital of Harlock before. Tila herself was an ancient matron who pushed every bit of 700 pungent, sweaty pounds, yet she was able to move between the tables with the elegant grace of a professional dancer turned icebreaker. Despite it being 2 a.m, the bar was packed with many people from various creator-run cultures, meaning they were led by beings mortals often called gods. 5 burly Jotuns of Odin's Aesir were singing an off-key drinking song, which involved a lot of stamping feet and banging mugs to spill beer. Host ascendancy. Traveling evangelists were practicing speeches which sounded conspicuously like sermons professing the religion of Elohim. They had started out good, until Tila added pure rubbing alcohol to their beer to cut down on the proselytizing, and now they were mumbling and nursing headaches. Businessmen from Creator Vishnu's Brahmanavarta were busy engaging in their culture, time-honored pastime of one-upmanship by ordering the most expensive things on the menu. Since Tila had little in the way of morals or ethics when it came to fair prices, they were given the special menus. A few centaurs and elementals from another universe were present, though they had only just recently joined the Legion, and there was even a succubus trying to get laid, even though no one was willing to risk the supposedly amazing sex. All in all, it was a normal night for the dive bar, which was always open to serve whoever passed through with money, especially the soldiers of the Legion, the Legionnaires. Mama Tila's was located on the main road from the capital spaceport. The majority of the customers in the early hours were those who were on furlough from ships docked for repair and refit in the vast, sprawling orbital shipyards. One such legionnaire sat alone in a window booth, surrounded by dozens of empty bottles as she drowned her sorrows while looking out to the street. She was a short, curvy thing, with a clipped, precise brown ponytail and flat, mud-colored eyes. Her deep scowl had a presence all of its very own, which drove away the curious and the desperate. Her attention was focused on a man standing under a gaudy neon sign of a dancing girl across the street. The man had lost one of his boots, and his once proud uniform hung in tattered rags about his skeletal frame. At every person passing by, the man would hold out his shaking hands to beg for money. People avoided him on principle, and only a few were brave enough to meet his hollow, sunken eyes and risk touching him to drop a few coins before hurrying along. The woman's attention was drawn away from the window by a deep voice, too booming to be coming from a mortal. "Pardon me, child, but is this seat taken? It would appear Tila has sold all of her other chairs this morning, and it's not even rush hour yet." The woman showed no outward signs of bother by being called a child, as the newcomer was obviously an angel, and she was just another mortal. She knew her place in the pecking order. The angel was average for his kind, at over 9 feet tall, and built like a fortress of muscle. He had shaggy, sandy-colored, close-cropped hair and piercing green eyes. The woman nodded her head, and the angel sat down, after clearing a half-dozen empty bottles from the ripped leather seat and table. "Thank you," the angel rumbled. "The name's Abaddon, miss." "I know who you are, my lord," the woman said calmly. She did not want the company, yet it was not prudent for a mortal to openly disrespect a being of spirit if they knew what was good for them. Besides, Abaddon was the current second-in-command for the entirety of the Legion across the known universes. She realized she was being rude and added, "Amaranthine Chu." The angel regarded her for a long, uncomfortable moment before saying, "For some reason, I feel like I have heard your name before." "You probably have, my lord." "Please," Abaddon said, pointing his hand at his temple in the figure of a handgun. "I'm off the clock. So, what brings you to Harlock, Decurion?" The woman reached up and touched the gorget around her neck while muttering a curse. She had not meant to wear it since she was not on duty. Yet, the metal plate denoting her rank and her scowl had been effective in keeping unwanted company away. She turned back to the window and said, "We ran into a micrometeorite storm with our shields down for repairs. Given our predicament, I pestered my centurion to bring his ship here to the Harlock berths so I could see my fiancée. Well, X now, unless you can fix a shell-shocked mind turned to drugs and who knows what else." Abaddon followed the woman's gaze through the window and winced. Tens of billions of legionnaires died every month in the line of duty. Their jobs were to expand the borders of the known universes, to allow the Creator-run nations room to peacefully expand without turning terrible technologies upon each other. All soldiers from every culture saw and were forced to deal with unimaginable experiences, but in the Legion, such experiences were often soul-crushing events. Abaddon sighed and said, "I can do many things, child, but what you ask is beyond my abilities. Might I ask what happened to him, if it does not cause you too much pain?" The medics claim they found him all alone, on some rock out in the rim past Protectorate space with an emergency beacon going. No Legio, no Century, no burn, nothing. Not even any other corpses or signs of life outside of the research station his Century was supposed to be guarding. The only thing they claimed to find were empty buildings. The angel was giving her his full attention now. "And some idiot brought a possibly possessed person here, of all places?" Amaranthine gave him a quick glance to make sure she heard his tone right, before nodding and looking back out of the window. She told herself she would not cry, but a single tear rolled down her cheek as she said, "They said he was possessed by something, which was why he had been left alive to be carried to the next feeding ground. He has been exorcised, or so his family said. I wanted to give him a quick mercy, but we had only been married a few months, and his family got to him first, since I was on the other side of the universe. They chose the path he is on now, because to grant him mercy would be murder in their eyes. I have not pushed the issue, because what made Carl the person I married is gone. That, and I technically do not exist anywhere on paper, so pushing any issue in court is pointless. Look at me, child. I want you to know you are not someone who exists only in rumor and in shadow. You are real, and you matter to both me and my father. What was done is done, and we cannot change it. But we can and will grant your wish for him soon, because to keep him alive in such a state is monstrous." Amaranthine shrugged, as if already resigned to things being the way they were, when Mamatila's meaty hands slammed down on the table hard enough to bounce the empty glassware a few inches in the air. "That you be even," the fat woman said in her uncultured accent. "I'll take some of that peach brandy you got in last month," the angel said. "He is running late again, but we will do 2 of the usuals. Oh, and bring the decurion whatever she wishes, as she was gracious enough to lend us her booth. Bring me her check as well." "I'm fine," Amaranthine muttered in a stupor as she resumed looking out of the window. Abaddon smiled. "Just bring her a usual tila." The obese woman grunted to push herself away from the table with what sounded like enormous effort to waddle away. Several minutes later, 3 plates were slammed down onto the table, and each bore a large, flaky pastry filled with the best meat pie anywhere in the Legion. From her grease-stained pocket, the owner produced 3 sets of abused and crooked silverware. Lastly, she reached a hand between her enormous breasts to produce a paltry amount of sweat-soaked, super-cheap and thin paper napkins. The angel paid them no mind, as the napkins made a wet splat sound when tossed on the wood table, since he was used to the woman's theatrics. Waiting for the owner to leave, Amaranthine took one look at the puddle oozing from the napkins and gingerly pushed her plate away. "Thanks," she said. "But for some reason I just couldn't eat a bite right now." "Suit yourself," Abaddon replied, stabbing his pastry with one of the dirty forks to produce small geysers of mouth-watering steam. Like all true beings of spirit, his physical vessel did not require calories to function, only new spirit. Yet, most Legion angels took after their maker and acted more mortal than their other brethren sired by other creators. Take it from me, Decurion, you really don't know what you are missing till you have tried one of these. Amaranthine gestured with her bottle to the 3rd plate left on the table's edge where the aisle was. "Who are you waiting on?" Her voice trailed off as her mouth fell open upon seeing a figure slide over a rickety 3-legged stool. The newcomer adjusted his sword belt and took a seat gingerly, as if expecting the stool to collapse under his weight. Because at Tila's, it just might. It was none other than the old Legion Master himself, the creator hiding behind the name of the long-ago cast-out angel, Lucifer. Though he could look however he wished, the Legion Master always chose to look not quite homeless, but close enough. His knee-high boots had not seen polish in over 1,000 years of hard use, and his black pants and shirt were mottled grey when they should have been midnight black. His jacket was sun-bleached lavender from royal purple, and he grabbed one of the half-finished bottles from the pile in front of the woman and chugged it greedily, even though he never cared much for the taste of beer. "I hate those stingy Brahmanavata bastards my brother sent," he said to no one in particular. "I mean, he's in the middle of a civil war, and sends the best legalists I have ever seen. You would think he would have more pressing matters to concern himself with." Abaddon spoke around a mouthful of his food. "Good morning to you too." The old creator looked down at the bottle in his hand and placed it back in front of its owner. "Sorry, Amaranthine. I'll get you another." "It's okay," the woman replied in a squeaky, startled voice. Amaranthine had never met the Legion Master before, and he had just called her by name. Something about the way the day was turning out was beginning to shock her out of her self-inflicted stupor. As if by miracle, or long years of practice, Tila chose that moment to waddle past and slam fresh bottles down on the table before handing Abaddon his drink with a look which said the liquid was poisoned. She did not care for frilly drinks, and would have probably cut it with water if it had been anyone else who had asked for it. "So," Abaddon said, around a mouthful of meat and potatoes, after nodding his thanks to the fat woman. "I take it the trade conference is not going as planned." They never do where Vishnu is concerned, Lucifer replied, waving his hand. It is moving along as they always do, slow, dull, and full of never-ending complaints and counter-offers. If I am forced to listen to old Sanju what's-his-name from the Brahmanavata consulate argue legalities one more time, I think I'm going to strangle him with his own bootlaces. Their ambassador does not need to be there, arguing alongside the legalists. Gods, I should never have allowed you to dragoon me into this nonsense. Abaddon snorted as he sipped his brandy, paused, and pulled a dark brown hair from between his pursed lips. He eyed his drink suspiciously as he said, "Don't be too hard on him, Father. He's doing what Vishnu pays him to do. What use would there be in sending people to such a conference, if not to argue in the sender's favor?" Lucifer glowered at his angel, until Abaddon held up his hands in surrender, then also began eating the food which his body did not require. Amaranthine was just about to return her attention to the lost soul beyond the window when the leader of her nation held out a slender data crystal while saying, "I know you are on leave, Decurion, but would you take a look at what's on here and give me your opinion? I'll pay your bar tab if you do." The woman never even hesitated, even though she argued against it when Abaddon had suggested the same thing. She reached out her hand to accept the crystal. Her bill was going to be astronomical, and she had nothing to do anyway. Besides, the second-in-command of her boss had just told her he would honor her wish and grant her husband a merciful end to his demon-tormented existence. She trusted such a being's word given his reputation. "What do you want me to look for?" she asked. The Legion Master shrugged and replied, "You're the ghost. Do what Hrolif pays you to do best." Ghosts were the common nickname given to those legionnaires of Legio Hrolif. Hrolif was, according to some, the Legion's premier spy and information gatherer. It was said that he could change his physical shape to almost any organic or inorganic entity he wished. How he did so was a mystery, as he was reported to not be a creator. Yet one could not argue with the end results of his labors. His Legio officially did not exist on any digital or written material anywhere. If someone was able to find some shred of digital evidence, then that same someone would find only names of those who died in common everyday accidents. Ghosts did not have living family members, and were encouraged to keep their friends limited in number to only those of which they trusted with their very lives. Being a ghost meant an individual would spend the majority of their time on board starships, or void and terrestrial installations. Their job was to behave as any normal legionnaire would, while going about their duties, while being ever vigilant for enemy or allied spies. Occasionally they would be called upon to infiltrate, but such tasks were a rare occurrence and driven by only great necessity. Though Amaranthine had said she had been married, there would never be any legal document on the matter, and her husband was one of her peers, and so understood the necessity of anonymity. Amaranthine took the slender crystal rod and placed it into a hidden implanted reader in her left wrist. Implants of any form were generally frowned upon in the Legion, as they were susceptible to all manner of unwanted intrusions. Most sane people had a healthy fear of someone else hacking into their implant to potentially alter thoughts and actions. With the ghosts, however, such things were a necessity in their line of work. Even though it was her ultimate boss who had given her the data crystal, the Decurion activated all of her counter-intrusion programs before getting to work. Almost immediately, a pseudo-reality was overlaid upon her vision as she watched the recording of the trade conference unfold. The perspective camera angle was probably Lucifer, which was confirmed as he stood at the head of a long table and gestured with his hands to emphasize his points. The scene was disorientating, as the perspective bounced randomly between many hidden cameras. Representatives of the trade conference could be seen from almost every major and minor universal factions, including some the Decurion had never seen before. Leaning back in her booth to drink some beer, Amaranthine set the recording to run at 5 times speed, while allowing her conscious mind to fade into the background to let her subconscious do its job. She had been a ghost for over 20 years, and there was not much she had not seen. If there was something here, her subconscious would pick up on it and mark it on the video's timeline for review. The ghost watched the younger politicians give away, much as they cried out objections or gave applause. The older and craftier of the breed sat mute and still to make their plays in the dark rooms and after parties. It did not take long to find what she was looking for. Killing the feed, the ghost found she had downed another 3 beers without realizing it. "Thoughts?" Lucifer asked. "I made 13 obvious spies in the conference, but there was one who was watching the 13 more than the politicians." "Meaning?" Abaddon asked. The woman gave him a hard look. "As if you don't know, my lord. Let me talk this out." The angel snorted dismissively, though his eyes betrayed amusement, as the woman continued. "I take it there were communication jammers in place?" Lucifer shook his head. "No. Such meetings would become endlessly tedious if the delegates were forced to take a bathroom break every 5 minutes to talk with their bosses or respective creators. Besides, my delegates could get around such jammers when it was their turn to argue in our favor at my siblings' own conferences, and I would rather not hear constant cries of, 'But that's not fair.'" He made air quotes to go along with his mocking tone. Amaranthine rubbed her chin as she sat back to take another drink. "Okay. Let us assume the delegates were at some point, or at the very least, had the ability to communicate with their bosses. Why then were most of them looking to the spies for the go-ahead to proceed with lines of thought or grievances? If there was not any jamming, they should be the ones holding the communicators. It's more efficient." "Good question," Lucifer said. "You are right. It would be more efficient, and is the way such things are normally done." And what of this Watcher character? His body build and facial features were so bland he could pass for one of almost any nation besides the Empire. He chose his dress well, too. I couldn't place it definitively either. What bothers me is that he seemed to be the one ultimately guiding the spies, and thus the politicians, even ones from different nations. He did seem to be talking more with the Brahmanavata ambassador. Lucifer clapped his hand softly 3 times. "Very good, Decurion. Very good," he said. "But who is he? Why was he talking with Ambassador Sanju over the others?" Amaranthine shook her head. "I don't know." "Then how do we find out?" Tila's indomitable presence was suddenly standing behind the Legion Master in the aisle, and Amaranthine knew then her suspicions about the fat woman were correct. Over the roar of drunken conversation, there was simply no way for Mama Tila to have heard and moved fast enough to be standing where she was. Not from back in the kitchen, which the Decurion had clearly seen her moving around in. 2 enormous hands clapped Lucifer on the shoulders, which caused him to almost spill his drink. "Say," Tila said, "albeit Chu never invite me to dance no more? Chu be remembering I like parties, Vit." "You gained a little too much weight to sneak over rooftops, old girl," Lucifer remarked. The fat woman thrust her ample bosom and gut forward to knock the Legion Master half out of his chair, and he was forced to spread his hands and grab the table in order to avoid wearing his food. Tila leaned over to spit a thick globule of chore on the ground. It landed on the floor with the sound of an insect exploding on an aircar's windshield. "Of course I been remembering how to dance, Lucifer, Me question is, can she dance with me? Amaranthine watched the old creator cast a pleading look in her direction and mouth the words, "Take her with you." The Decurion shook her head and said, "No offense, but, if I am supposed to be breaking and entering, I will need a partner who can fit through a window. You would have to lose like 500 pounds, and what the hell are you?" As the ghost was talking, the Legion Master waved his hand to stop time like only an elder creator could. Amaranthine never noticed, as she was staring at Tila's flesh and clothes, since they rippled like water disturbed by the passage of a large ship. What was once a grossly fat woman became something out of a nightmare, as there could only be one explanation to what she was now. Shedding many hundreds of pounds to who knew where, the fat woman became the very embodiment of sin itself. Tila stood wearing crimson-red rubber catsuit, which showed off every perfect curve. Her hair was the same color red as her outfit, and it matched her golden slash-red opalescent eaves. From the neck down, the woman seemed to be encased to where the outside world could not touch her. The ghost's back was fully pressed against the window, and her eyes held a wild, feral look as she looked for an escape route. She contemplated breaking the window and making a run for it, but if Tila was what she suspected, there would be no hope of escape. Besides, Lucifer and Abaddon were sitting there looking bored, so they obviously knew what she was and were not afraid. The Decurion eased herself back into her chair and shotgunned a half-drunk bottle of beer. "I can't believe you're one of Creator Gaia's succubi." Tila's eyes narrowed as her voice became bitter cold. "Do not ever suggest that I, mortal, am one of those brainwashed slaves ever again." To emphasize her point, she reached one arm around the Legion Master to drag fingers, which now had long talon-like claws across the table. Wood shavings curled from the table like someone sliding a metal chair across a waxed floor. "Do you understand me, mortal? I am a chimera, not one of those weak, childlike imitations. Isn't that right, Luce?" "I refuse to get involved," Lucifer said, hooking a thumb at his second in command. "He's your man for this." The angel shook his head and scooted farther away from the woman wearing the rubber suit. "Nope," Abaddon countered. "You all are just going to have to work this out on your own." Amaranthine took a deep breath and let it out slowly before saying, "I meant no offense, Tila. I did not know of the differences between your two people. Please forgive my ignorance." Tila stared at the other woman as if deciding her fate. Then her lips quivered in uncontrollable laughter as she buried her mouth in Lucifer's shoulder to stifle her outburst while pounding on his back so his food fell off of his fork again. She lifted her head to speak, but fell back again amidst giggles. When she could stand up, the woman pointed a finger at the ghost and covered her mouth with her free hand. "Did you two see her face?" she said. "She was so serious. Oh gods, that was precious. Child, of course I am a succubus. I obviously do not have a goat's head, nor would I want one if I ever hoped to get noticed by even the ugliest of men. Though I am not like the succubi you're thinking of. I am one of the last few originals left in the known universes." The Decurion said stupidly. Tila smiled to reveal teeth white enough for a hollow commercial. "Put it to you this way. Where exactly did you think Gaia got her idea for her soul stealers from?" "Answer. She copied my people from what was left of us in the Legion databanks before she went off on her own. Those of us who remain do so because old Luce here offered to take us in despite our diet of sentient souls." "How many of you are left?" Amaranthine asked, her shock wearing off. Tila wrapped her arms around Lucifer and rested her chin on top of his head. Both beings' mannerisms were those of a couple who had been together for the literal definition of forever. Who really knows? She lied, as she was the last one of her people left, and she hated such a fact more than her eternal tormented existence after she accidentally absorbed a creator's soul once, and was from then on cursed to live forever. But if it is over a dozen, I will start giving out correct change. Point is, I can dance with the best of them. Hell, compared to you, I'm bloody geriatric. Her golden red eyes began to sparkle. This will be fun. I haven't been on an adventure in ages. Lucifer snorted. That's because I have to pay you to do anything. Blah blah, do you want me to help her or not? Lucifer sighed and held up a large silver coin which was snatched greedily from his fingers with a disgusted sound of pleasure. Chapter 1. This is ridiculous, and I can't believe he is making me do this. This is never going to help. Just try and see where it goes. Fine, whatever. Yes. I can't stand my life and these horrible clothes I am forced to wear in order to go out in public. I hate them, and I hate myself for what I did. I didn't know. How could I have known? Just start at the beginning and explain from there. Sounds of someone taking a shaky breath and the creak of a leather chair. I was with my mother, and we were going to see my father. Our ship was attacked by slavers, and this is pointless. Keep going, please. The slavers boarded us and started killing all of the middle-aged and the old. They wanted us children, because we were easier to control, and they could sell us for a higher price. Our room was at the back, and my mother told me to crawl under the bodies of the dead around us, and to not make a sound. I heard her scream when they chopped her to pieces. Those damned slavers didn't want to get their hands dirty, apparently, since they never bothered to look under the pile of corpses for me. I guess our ship sent out a distress call because the pirates started shouting and screaming that the Legion had just showed up. I didn't know what that meant. There was an explosion, and I could hear the sounds of gunfire. Someone eventually began moving the corpses and telling me it was okay and that I was safe. When I felt that hand touch me, I guess I fed from him. Are you happy now with this ridiculous interrogation you call therapy? I fed from the master in panic, and now I'm cursed like the rest of you to never die. But you can touch people. You can have friends and go do things. I have to wear these damn gloves and cover my skin, because every time I touch someone, I rip the soul out of their body because I'm done with this talking. I have things to do. Part of the audio recording for the only therapy session Tila has ever attended. It had been 2 weeks since Amaranthine and Tila had begun their task, and those 2 weeks were some of the most frustrating the mortal woman had ever endured. Tila talked incessantly about anything and everything, especially good-looking men they both observed while skulking around. Her comments were inappropriate to the task at hand, calloused in the extreme, and oftentimes downright disturbing. The supposed succubus had no inhibitions about flirting with men or women. She did not wear clothes when the two were alone in their rented hotel rooms. And most infuriating of all, the succubus was so naturally good-looking when hidden from public. She gave the mortal the worst case of jealousy ever. "Can you put some damn clothes on?" Amaranthine screamed, as Tila came to sit across from the other woman on a disgusting couch in their cheap hotel to go over the day's information. This was not the first outburst from the mortal that Tila had endured because of her personality. Yet for once in 2 weeks, she chose not to argue and do as she was bid. Her flesh rippled and was covered by sea through lingerie of an older style than was currently fashionable. Despite acting like a slutty pornography actress, Amaranthine noticed the other woman went out of her way to always stay out of arm's reach when looking as she did behind closed doors. In public, the woman wore an appearance which none would consider beautiful, and was always fully clothed to include gloves, and had her hair done up in a tight bun. A man a couple doors down yelled out, "Get some girls!" The ghost rolled her eyes and sighed as the call was taken up all around the hotel. Both women had been hit on constantly by the creepy men of this building, but a few broken bones and gunshot wounds had gotten their point across that they were not interested. So naturally, the men all thought they were lesbians who hated men. To drive the point home, their next-door neighbor began rhythmically hitting the wall like a bed would during fun time. "I hate this place," Amaranthine groaned. "It could always be worse," Tila said, drawing a handgun from between the couch cushions and cranking off a few rounds through the walls. As if by magic, all sound ceased in the apartments. "These degenerates could be trying to kick the door down." She shuddered. "I mean, come on. Could you see that skinny neckbeard next door to us trying to figure out what his junk is meant for? Poor kid has never gotten laid in his whole life. He probably just sits in a dark room drinking energy drinks and playing video games all day while arguing in chat rooms." Amaranthine snorted as she eyed the directional flechette bomb they had pointing at the front door for just such emergencies. She pulled out and activated a small net terminal, which flared into holographic life. "Can you ever be serious about anything?" The succubus's entire tone and attitude changed to something so cold it made the ghost look up at her. "Mortal, you have no idea how much my existence pains me. You cannot comprehend what following the Master from one creation event to another does to your sanity. And I do mean the real creation events. I want to be like you so bad it causes physical pain, but I can't because I did something stupid once, and am now cursed and damned for it. So I am the way I am, because to do as you suggest would lead to my eventual madness. I know, I tried. And coming face to face with yourself in the mirror, looking at a monster devoid of all rational thought or emotion, is something I do not care to ever repeat again. So you can be the rational, serious one in our little group, and I will continue to be what I am, and like what I like. Deal?" Amaranthine shuddered as she felt an electric tingle shoot down her spine. "Just how old are you?" she asked. The succubus's metallic, golden-red eyes looked away. "I honestly don't know anymore. I know I am older than Abaddon by quite a bit, and he is probably the oldest of the Master's angels that you will ever meet here in three-dimensional space. But I am nowhere near as old as Lilith and some of the others." She paused as if trying to gauge what to say. The time between creation events, where everyone is brought to the library, is indeterminate because there is no outside frame of reference for there to be any meaning of time. So, even if I remembered how many cycles I have been through, I still would not have a good answer for you. "What library are you talking about?" "Don't be dense," Tila snorted. "Your holy book mentions it. It's the place where all souls not currently in being housed in a physical vessels reside until their re-emergence. The Master chooses to not reincorporate them into himself, as doing so would destroy the memories of the soul. Well, destroy is not the right word. Use erase, as in erasing that particular individual, as you would do overwriting computer data. Technically, nothing is ever erased of a data crystal, right? Well, the same is true for souls. Yet, nothing of the soul would be as it was." She paused like a small animal, hearing a strange noise before sidetracking the conversation. "He saved me, you know." "Who?" Amaranthine asked, guessing as to the answer, but wanting to feel the other woman out, because she was normally not so seemingly open about anything. Abaddon? Oh no, child. The old man. The one you know of as the master. I was almost an adult by my people's standards, blossoming into womanhood, and almost old enough to have to start feeding on other sentient souls. My father was a carpenter of all things, and he just accepted a contract to help build furniture in some posh rich person's house. It was going to be a long job, and so Mother packed me and my 3 brothers up, and we were going to live with him in some apartment for a few years. Tila's hands clenched into fists and her eyes blazed with fury. Slavers attacked the transport we were on, and the crew did not even try to help the passengers. They just boarded their lifeboats and swam away. The slavers took the young ones and shot all of the rest. I was at the back when they opened fire, crushed under the weight of all of the people. My mum had me change my shape to a sickly old man, and those monsters passed over me because they wanted to rape and sell children, not crippled old men. Were you the only survivor? Tila shrugged. As far as I know. And I do not know much else besides. He pulled me out of the pile of corpses, and the ship my mother and I were on exploded shortly after that. Probably a bomb placed on the reactor by the pirates to cover their tracks. What? Why are you looking at me like that? You cheat at everything, and you lie constantly, just as you are lying to my face now. Tila shook her head. There was no lie in there, hun. Amaranthine shut off her hollow terminal and gave the comically busty woman her full attention. Hon, she said, mimicking the other woman's tone. In my line of work, a half-truth is no better than a full lie. Why would I ever expect you to tell me the truth? And why would you just magically start today of all days? Because you haven't trusted me since we first started working together. You sleep with one eye on me and your hand on your pistol. You check the food I make with a poison snooper when you think I am not looking. Double-check whatever dump we're staying in for listening devices and cameras when it's my turn to go out. Tila gave a half-hearted smile. Go on. Tell me I am wrong. No, the ghost said, meeting the golden-red eyes. You're not wrong. You remind me of the story of the maid and the king. You should know the fairy tale, right? The amazingly beautiful maid tempted the king from his wife, slept with him, then slit his throat as he climaxed before setting fire to the castle. Since she had his bastard son, she even managed to start a civil war for control of what was left over. She was a spy from the king's mortal enemy, a princess even, to add more validity for the illegitimate son. The fable described this princess as having red hair, and that she was the most beautiful person to have ever been seen in the kingdom. The moral of the story is quite simple. Beware of things that look too good to be true, for they are. For all I know, that story was modeled after you. Tila looked amused, but didn't argue against the ghost's comparison. I see why they keep you around. The succubus smirked, and it was not kind. You are the kind of woman who runs a man's criminal record just because he said hi to you in the bar. Good on you, hon. A girl can't be too careful these days. Anyway, have we learned anything new about the man we are looking for? Amaranthine switched screens on the hollow terminal, and a floating shoulder-up photo of the man who could have come from almost anywhere flared into life. Officially, his name was entered into the registry when he made planetfall on Harlock as Justin Gertelson. Records show he was assigned to the Brahmana Vata trade delegation by their consulate on the other side of the city. But I have no information on him from before he made planetfall. My requests to the host gate controllers for their information on him met a brick wall. Not surprising. So, either he arrived in system in a small, self-displacing void craft, or he made it through the notoriously strict host travel system with a fake identity from the very beginning. He did not just arrive in system, Tila said with absolute confidence. Morana watches every piece of dust here from the scanners she has littered around here by the billions. Nothing comes in or out without her knowing about it. I'm pretty sure she watches rogue hydrogen atoms colliding from stellar wind for fun. Morana was one of the people commonly referred to as sentients, as they would never tell anyone the name of their people who, long ago, downloaded their consciousness into vast digital databanks. She and her people had spent so long inside of the machines, their minds were now able to think at or near light speed. Her people served as the Legion's ship and installation-based central control systems. They also possessed their own free will and independence to do as they pleased within the Legion. It was that independence which made the ghost automatically suspicious, because it was her job to be. What if this sentient let the one we are looking for into the Harlock system? She would have the ability to alter all records and throw us off every track we find. Again, Tila shook her head and answered with absolute certainty. Never going to happen. And how are you so sure? Damn girl, you're paranoid up to your eyeballs. Quite simply, because in all of the time Morana's people have been a part of the Legion, not a single one of them has ever turned traitor. Not one, and she is older than me. Maybe they are just biding their time. Maybe they have already done it, and because they control the information, we just do not know it. The perfect woman looked to the mortal as if she was a mentally slow child, and said, "You are incapable of understanding the amount of time I am talking about. I can do basic math. No mortal, you cannot. Not this much. The old man will publicly admit a creation event for a new universe is the heat death of an existing verse. You would call this a Google if you were to try and put a number on the amount of time I am talking about. A toilet paper roll full of zeros if you fell asleep in math class. But that was only a half-truth. A real creation event is much, much longer." The ghost was growing frustrated, both from the simple fact she was getting nowhere with her search for the mystery person and from her assigned partner. "Well then, explain it for me, since you are so all-wise and all-knowing." Tila closed her eyes and grimaced. "I hope he does not get mad at me for this. All right, an actual creation event is the amount of time from when the old man makes the possibility of what we know of as universes, up until he goes insane from the stimuli of everything and tears it all down in a violent temper tantrum." "Enough!" a voice commanded, like a thunderclap of a wrathful god. Both Tila and Amaranthine Chu jumped from the sudden, violent explosion of noise. With their ears still ringing, the voice lowered to that of the one which had spoken in the restaurant a few weeks ago. "Please stop giving away my secrets, Tila, or I will make you pay me for a change. And Amaranthine, a Google to the power of 30 or so, is what she is talking about. I assure you, Morana and her people are loyal to a fault. Were I you, I might consider the third option of the Brahminavata consulate, having one of Minwala's mirrors or something like it. It would explain how your target got on Harlock unnoticed in the first place." Tila quickly shouted at the ceiling, "Why couldn't you have told us that from the start?" No reply answered her, and she leaned back and crossed her arms to sulk. "Well, crap, Horn. I guess we made him mad with our conversation." "We?" Amaranthine quipped. Tila shrugged, but her eyes glittered like a mischievous child. He can scold me in private later if it really got under his skin. I might even let him win for once, since he told us about that mirror. A feral grin split her lips as she thought about the task in front of the two of them. They now had a purpose and a direction. Should we destroy the mirror first, or go gather information? The ghost asked. Don't be stupid, mortal, Tila replied, standing up to go about collecting various tools she thought she would need. Don't you know what Minwalla's mirrors are? Small quantum displacement gates is what someone told me a long time ago. I mean, I can see the danger of such a device, but isn't there security in place to keep people from shoving atomics from one gate to the other? Tila nodded. Sure, but to people like the Master, such a thing is of no moment. Because he can get around the security, he has chosen the course of prudence and issued the proclamation that all such objects should be under his control or destroyed. He does not want to take the risk of someone else figuring out how to get around the security for obvious reasons, considering I can think of far worse presents than atomics to be shoved through. You know, like a nanite bomb, which will slowly turn a planet and all of its inhabitants into grey goo. Maybe a singularity bomb, if you are feeling spicy. The succubus stopped moving and frowned. There is one other reason I can think of to destroy them. And what is that? Amaranthine asked. Officially, it is the host ascendancy that has the monopoly on interstellar transit due to their massive displacement gates, since everyone but us uses them. By having Creator Elohim play his part in the game, the Master can ensure war between the superpowers is limited to relatively slow-paced actions. Were others to get the idea, they could either replicate Minwalla's work or jerry-rig it into their own homegrown gate system. Well, it would change the balance of power. Amaranthine stood up to go put on her burglar clothes. She paused to rub her chin as she thought. If you were whoever is behind this, where would you keep such a dangerous tool? Tila grinned as the answer was self-evident once you thought about it, just like most riddles were. Since my whole mission requires that one object be in perfect working order, I would never let it out of my sight. If it were small enough, I would even carry it on my person.